Hello everyone, this is Rex Chen, founder and financial advisor at Clarity MD Services. So today I want to take a few minutes to go over the tax forms that you'll be asked to complete when you enter residency. Now just some background information on how you get paid. And as an employee, your taxes, employment insurance, and Canada pension plan, and also union dues are deducted as source. That means by the time you receive your paycheck, all of these amounts would have been deducted already. So when you join a company, which in your case, you are a new employee at the hospital, they're obligated to get a better understanding of your current tax situation. And the way to do it is by asking you to complete some forms called the TD1 forms. And there are two sets of TD1 forms. One is the federal, which everyone has to complete regardless of where you are and where you're doing your residency, and as well as the provincial TD1, usually named by TD1 and then the province short form. So let's say TD101 would be Ontario, TD1MB would be Manitoba TD1. So let's go over the TD1 and what that looks like. So this is a sample of a TD1. They are very similar years to years, but you always want to obviously use the current year's TD1. So this year is 2021, which is what I have on my screen. Now, notice, if you will, most of these will not apply to you. But what happens is when you report any credits on this form, the hospital will take the amounts into consideration and reduce your tax as source. And the one thing that would be most relevant to most medical students is the tuition. But notice, if you will, if you do follow the instruction under 0.5 tuition, it will only be asking you to calculate how much you have accumulated in the current year. It doesn't include the tuition that you have from previous years, which can be a lot more. So where do you obtain the cumulative value? Well, it's from your notice of assessment. And a notice of assessment is a tax summary given to you after you file your tax return. And if you did it yourself, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But if someone did it for you over the years, such as your parents, your accountant, if you ask them for a copy, I'm pretty sure they will give you a copy from previous year's tax return. So on this notice of assessment, the only thing that is important is the tuition credit amounts, and that will give you the cumulative value, which is how much you have accumulated over time in the past whatever number of years that you were studying. So you will see the federal credits as well as the provincial credits, but it's the federal credit that is more important than the provincial. So going back to the TD1 forms, and once you obtain the federal amounts from the notice of assessment, you will just put it under box 5. Instead of putting just the current year's tuition credits, by putting a larger amount here, you basically get more of your pay upfront as opposed to having the tax being deducted as source. And the amount is in the range of $800 to $1,000 per paycheck. With respect to the provincial form, it really depends on which province you are doing your residency. For Nova Scotia, for instance, there is in fact another tuition box under line 5. But if you look at the Ontario TD1, there isn't a box for tuition at all, so there's not much you can do. So you may wonder, what about this T1213? Which you may have been asked to complete as well. So they actually do the same thing as the TD1, which is to help reduce your tax as source. However, we only recommend using the T1213 and after your TD1 is rejected. And there are times that the TD1 is rejected because they want you to follow the steps, follow the instruction on the form as opposed to putting the cumulative value. It doesn't happen quite very often, but it has happened in the past. It seems to be quite random, and I have a feeling that it depends on the person who is handling the form at times. So in any case, if in fact your form is rejected, then you fall back to two options. You either just leave it as is so that the tax will be deducted as source and you have to wait until you file your tax return to get the refund. Or if you want to try out the T1213, you can also do that. And on the form, there's actually a specific section for you to report your tuition and textbook amounts, and that's under other on page 2. So by putting your federal and provincial amounts here, and you will submit this form to CRA. CRA will send you a letter in a few weeks so that you can give that letter to the hospital. The hospital will just reduce your tax at source. It's basically an instruction to the hospital that you do have sufficient credit so that they don't have to worry about the taxes at all. So it's straight, it comes directly from CRA. So what's the problem with this form is you do have to do it once a year. Unlike the TD1, you only have to do it once in the beginning of residency, and that value would carry with you for the rest of your residency until you actually tell them to stop. But for T1213, you do have to do it every year, and that's not only the problem. Also, remember, if you submit to T1213, they start paying you all the taxes up front, and then comes January, all of a sudden, they will deduct taxes again and ask you to complete a new T1213. And by then, you can't actually complete a new one because you haven't filed your taxes yet. You pretty much have to wait until March or April before you have all the updated tax documents for you to file your return, and then would you receive an updated notice of assessment. And then you can apply for the T1213 again. So it is a very, very tedious process where every year you have to file your return, wait for the notice of assessment, resubmit to T1213, and then wait for the letter and give to the hospital again. So that's why we didn't think it was worth your effort to complete the T1213. Instead, it is better to just pay your taxes and wait for the refund instead. So going back to our last point where once you submit the TD1, the value stays with the employer and they don't get updated until you submit a new one. And it's absolutely essential for you to monitor how much tuition credits you have, and simply by just reviewing your notice of assessment every year and seeing how much you have left. So when you get to the point where you have somewhere around $30,000 tuition credits, it's probably time for you to update the TD1 by submitting like a blank one so that the hospital understands you don't have any tuition credits left. They will update the system, then automatically right away you will start paying taxes throughout the year as opposed to not paying anything at all. So any unused tuition credits will be used to get at tax time where you get a refund. So you're not going to miss out on anything. It's just that you're going to get a smaller pay up front, but that's probably the time when you start paying taxes because all your tuition credits are running. Are depleting as we speak. So that's kind of the purpose of the TD1 and the TD1 provincial form. By completing them, the purpose is to lower your tax at source so that you get the money sooner, as opposed to not completing them. You have to wait until the refund to get the money back. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or just simply leave a comment below. Have a great day. Bye now.